So there's a real battle for your hearts and minds in the West, and it's being waged whether you know it or not. And I'm going to try to make it very clear and give you some examples. I first saw this article. It said newly declassified U.S. intel claims that Russia is laundering propaganda through unwitting Westerners, and that's happening. So this was on Twitter, so I chased down the original article. Here it is. It said this: Russian intelligence is operating a systematic program to launder pro-Kremlin propaganda through private relationship between Russian operatives and unwitting U.S. and Western targets, according to newly declassified U.S. intelligence. So these people are what we used to call in the 80s useful idiots. A useful idiot is a term for a naive or unwitting person who was used by the Soviet Union to promote the Soviet Union and promote their narrative. Okay, these influence operations are designed to be deliberately small scale, the overall goal being U.S. and Western persons presenting these ideas seemingly organic. So it's astroturf. It's not organic like, you know, actual grassroots kind of something. It's fake, but it looks like it's real. The co-optee influence operations are built primarily on personal relationships. They build trust with them, and then they can leverage that to covertly push the FSB's agenda. The campaigns have sometimes been effective at planting Russian narratives in the Western press, according to the intelligence, but the officials stressed that the Western voices that eventually became mouthpieces for Russian propaganda were almost certainly unaware of the role that they were playing. Like, they thought that they were doing something good. They didn't realize this. At the end of the day, this unwitting target is disseminating Russian influence operation, Russian propaganda to their target public, the U.S. official said. Ultimately, a lot of these are unwitting people, and they remain unaware who is essentially seeding these narratives. Now, there's first and second and third order iterations of this, right? There's the Russian FSB, there's the unwitting narrative of coming from that, and then there's your friend who's then repeating it to somebody else, right? Because they're just, you know, absorbing this stuff, thinking that they're doing good, trying to be a patriot, whatever, okay? Once you're aware of who these people are and their association with the FSB, by nature of what they're doing, they have very, very public persona, as the official said. And so I would just say that it's not really difficult to kind of follow the string. So if you can trace this back. Now, who are these useful idiots? Well, there's some that are pretty obvious, like Che Bose. Che Bose is this guy. This is, you know, he's putting this out on Twitter about bogged down. Let's chase down who he is. He's a guy on RT who's constantly just repeating Russian talking points. And if you want to see that, I have multiple videos with this guy. Anytime you see RT, he generally shows up. But he was putting this out on Twitter. And what they'll do is they'll show only one side of the story. So the sooner that EU and NATO and US elite realize that they've led their proxies into a catastrophic cul-de-sac, the better. The delusional think tank mafia that propagated this conflict have lost time for a settlement, time for peace. Okay, again, those are Russian talking points, and we're showing this cover of the magazine The Week. Of course, the cover was saying that it was bogged down, but they're actually starting to make some traction in Robotny and other places in the counteroffensive, but that doesn't matter. They're going to only show that one side. Another one is the dive with Jackson Hinkle, and I highlighted him in a video just yesterday. Scott Ritter and Jackson Hinkle and Medhurst as what they were saying about Prigozhin. Now, this guy's a really interesting character. I understand that he was hard left and then flipped over to the hard right. I'm not 100% about that, but this is what I understand was the case. Jackson Hinkle calls himself the most censored patriot on YouTube, and I'm sure Scott Ritter is saying step aside. But they have something in common. See, Scott Ritter, who I believe is a true believer, he doesn't have to worry about a handler feeding him money. People are like, he must be on the payroll. No. He really believes this stuff. So whatever they roll out the red carpet for him in Russia, and his wife is from the former Soviet Union, from Georgia, but he's truly all in for Russia. Well, I just discovered yesterday, well, hey, his girlfriend's from Russia. I wonder why. I mean, so you see some of the connections. I'm not saying that she's a spy or anything like that, but you're seeing part of the reason why he's so about to head to Russia with my love. Okay. Yeah, so you're seeing some of the connections there, and I'm not making a nefarious case that she's a double agent or she's leading him by the nose, but he's spouting this because he's already inclined and has a Russian girlfriend, and okay. But then you get to the next level, the big leagues. Now we're talking about the folks like Tucker Carlson as he's interviewing Trump, and Tucker Carlson has been all in on Russian everything, like pro-Russian. He's been pushing this narrative within the Republican Party, which was not already amenable to that, but has become more and more so over time, and it's unfortunate to see. Tucker Carlson was a guy saying, "I'm sincerely confused. Why shouldn't I root for Russia against Ukraine?" Like, I'm sorry, what? It's hard to understand. Like, we're the party of Ronald Reagan, and how has this been shifted? Okay, well, then you also have Donald Trump. And Donald Trump, I think, let's set aside the Russian, Manchurian candidate kind of narrative. I don't think that there's anything there. I think if you read something like Putin's Playbook by Rebecca Koffler, you'll see that what Putin was trying to do was sow discord in the election, and he didn't he actually, I think, thought that he was through Trump sowing discord for Hillary. Like, I think that's what he thought he was doing. And it didn't matter if he was sowing it for Trump or sowing it for Hillary. That's immaterial as long as he's crippling the United States by causing us to be at each other, and that's a real danger. Now, some Americans, particularly on the left, are rejoicing by this kind of picture. I see it as terrifying because every time he gets indicted, his poll numbers go up, his fundraising goes up, everything goes positively for Trump when he's indicted. So it's bizarre, but people are reacting by thinking this is political persecution, rightly or wrongly. That's what they're experiencing. And in the future, people are going to, I think that, like, so there was a town named Clinton, New Jersey. I grew up in Union, New Jersey, right? There's a town named Clinton, New Jersey, just down Route 78. And somehow I thought that was associated with Bill Clinton. And it's easy to think that, but it wasn't. This was before Bill Clinton was president. And I think people are going to think trumped up means what they're doing to Trump right now. And that's what, so it's going to backfire, I think. That my view is not necessarily perfect or right, or you can have a different view, but I think that that's what's going to happen. Every time that something like this happens, he gets bigger, and he's going to possibly be the candidate from the Republican Party because he's pushed over that edge by these kind of things. So, yeah. Okay. Then you have folks, and you're missing this if you're not paying attention. This was the Republican debate just last week, and I'm going to play this, and I want you to hear what Pence actually said, because this is the Republican Party that I know. These are my kind of Republicans, folks like Pence. Let's hear what he has to say.
So we can't solve the problems here in the United States and be the leader of the free world. Has a pretty small view of the greatest nation on earth.
That is incorrect.
We can do both, Vivek. We've done both. We've been the leader of the free world and the arsenal of democracy for years. The Reagan Doctrine years ago made it clear. We said, if you're willing to fight the communists on your soil, we'll give you the means to fight them there so our troops don't have to fight them. Vivek, if we do the...
Okay, let's stop there for a second. So I call myself a Reagan conservative. That's exactly right. I'm all in, backing Ukraine. Now, there's a split within my party, but you got to understand, there is a split, and these Republicans, like Pence, do exist. They're Republicans like me. Vivek is also like Trump. He's on the other side of that equation. But whether it's Pence or Haley or Tim Scott or what's his name from New Jersey, Governor Christie from New Jersey, there's a number of Republican candidates, most of which have not gotten a lot of traction yet. But we're about, more than a year and 3 months out from the election. A lot can change that support Ukraine. Let's hear the rest of what Pence had to say here.
giveaway that you want to give to Putin to give him his land is not going to be too long before he rolls across a NATO border. And frankly, our men and women of our armed forces are going to have to go and fight him. I want to let the Ukrainians fight and drive Putin and the Russians back out into Russia.
Okay, so I'm just showing that clip to just show, like, there are Republicans who have this disposition. But I think, what's most useful is to understand that some got it a long time ago. Here's John McCain. John McCain died back in 2018, and but he was prescient. He understood what was going on, and I want you to hear his interview, what he has to say about what was going on with Putin.
Vladimir Putin's ambitions were very well known to me and to others. He knew that once Yanukovych left, he had to take Crimea because of Sevastopol. Then he tried the separatists.
So what he was saying there is the base at Sevastopol. They needed to keep and defend that so that they would have the warm water port, and that was very important to Putin. And so he was going to do that one way or another.
He armed the separatists. That didn't work. So then he sent in thousands of Russian troops. The fact is that they were slaughtering Ukrainians. There were hundreds killed, thousands in the hospitals. It's terrible. Poroshenko had no choice but to agree to a ceasefire. What is going to happen? I predict to you that it will be another step in Vladimir Putin's strategy to separate eastern Ukraine from Ukraine, and perhaps a land bridge to Crimea. No, it's a very bad result. And again,
that's exactly what happened too. I mean, he called it, and he called it 5 years before it happened.
He would not send weapons to the Ukrainians when they were begging for them. We wouldn't even give them intelligence because we didn't want to, quote, provoke Vladimir Putin. By showing weakness, we provoked Vladimir Putin.
And that's exactly what happens. You have to understand how Putin's going to operate, and by showing weakness, we rolled over, and Putin did what he was going to do because we showed the weakness.
By we, the United States,
Sure.
United States working with the EU,
and of course the Europeans. But I wasn't surprised about the Europeans. I was deeply disappointed in the United States of America when they begged us for defensive weapons, and they wouldn't even do that. In fact, it was almost comical. They sent MREs.
MREs are meals ready to eat, the packaged food that soldiers might carry, say in a cargo pocket that had high energy. That's all that they sent, which is shameful.
Why were you not surprised by the Europeans, you say, not taking sufficiently tough action against?
Because they're dependent on Russian energy.
And that's right. And that's actually something that Trump understood and called out with Nord Stream 2. I'm going to give credit where credit's due. That's not the only thing. Trump has done other things that are wrong, but here Trump got that right. But Angela Merkel got the Germans very dependent on it. So Putin's looking around going, the Germans aren't going to do anything. The other Europeans aren't going to do anything. The United States is demoralized. Now is the time. And that's unfortunate.
It's obvious. It was obvious. And the United States, it was obvious that we weren't going to assist them, and because they don't want to, quote, provoke Vladimir Putin. And there's nothing that provokes Vladimir Putin more than weakness.
Right. And who is saying don't provoke Vladimir Putin? And this brings us all the way back around. He's saying the sooner this ends, the better, right? Che, he's saying it, but he's not the only one saying it. Who else is saying it? Well, Jackson Hinkle is saying the same kind of thing. Who else is saying it? Tucker Carlson is saying the same thing, right? So you see this stream of these commentators all on the same thing, same party line. It's like they're all getting the same memo. So be careful who you listen to. And let me go right back to the very beginning. Okay, Russia is, and this is a very good phrase, laundering propaganda through unwitting Westerners. That could be someone that you listen to on YouTube, or that could be your cousin who listened to that guy on YouTube. So Just be aware. Okay, that's all I wanted to say. Thank you for your time. Thank you for the likes, the shares, the subscribes. Please share this with someone who can benefit from it. If you know a friend who's like on the fence and he might be spouting some of these things, just like help them understand what is really going on. Thank you, and thank you for being the kind of person that cares about Ukraine. I'll be back tomorrow. Hope you will be too.